Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. You guys have voted and here it is. This is Imagimorphia by Kirby Rosanas and this is the next nameplate page that we're going to tackle. Now I'm not going to lie, when I found out the results of the poll I was like, oh you guys, you make this really difficult for me. So first of all, I'd just like to say before we get going that I'm sorry if the light seems a little bit yellowish today. It's really bright sunlight outside this morning and I've had to close the shades down. I did try putting like an LED lamp on it and the white balance was just totally off because basically there was too much light. But I think we're going to be okay. It has given the page a slightly yellowish tint, but in terms of actually doing some colouring, I don't think it's going to make any difference. It is really early in the morning, and normally I wait for the sun to disappear past the cave window before I film videos, but this is literally the only time that I have, so we're doing it. Okay, so today's Chatorial, if you are new here, this is their first time seeing a Chatorial. It's basically a combination of me explaining little bits as I go, but also doing a colouring chat, because what I am doing is, some of it's going to be quite repetitive and you don't need me to keep explaining to you. So I'll just whittle away like I normally do and maybe tell you a funny story or something. Alright, so I've had a little bit of time to think about this picture, and what we are going to do is we're going to do a radial gradient round this part in the middle, which is obviously where we're going to put our name. So what we want to do is we want to start with one colour here on this first part, and as it gets out we want this gradient to change as it heads out to the corners of the picture. The other options that you have for doing a page like this, and I know some of you said like you have no idea where to start with something as busy as this, another option is to pick a limited colour palette, for example only blues, and pull together every blue pencil you can find or any other medium that you want to use in colouring books and just stick with that. Those are two really good ways of sort of making something like this a bit more manageable, shall we say, especially if you're a newer colourist. The other option, of course, is just to go absolutely bananas and use every single pencil that you've got. Daria made a really good suggestion a few videos back, and she said that she quite often picks out her longest pencils, so the ones that she uses least often, and gives them a chance to have their playtime on a page when it's something, you know, that's got quite a lot of detail in. So there's a couple of options for you, but I just thought it would be nice to do something different rather than just colour in, oh, you know, look, there's a whale, let's colour him grey or blue, you know, that kind of thing. So the first thing we want to do is I'm just taking a standard pencil, and this is just an HB pencil, it's not anything fancy. And what I want to do is, excuse me, I want to roughly mark out where those colour transitions are going to be. Now in my head I wanted to start on the actual blank bit of the paper here with a really pale yellow or cream colour. And so I wanted to go from yellow into green, into maybe like a turquoisey colour, into blue, and then just in these very corners here I'm going to go into purple, depending on, you know, where I can get those transitions. So there's two ways of doing this. You can freehand it, you can eyeball it, which is what I'm going to do, but if you're not confident with things like that, then you can use a compass, or if you can find something to draw around that's at the appropriate sizes, you can do that too. It's entirely up to yourself, but again, we're doing it in pencil, we're going to be rubbing these lines out anyway, so it's not a big deal. So I think I'm going to start my pale yellow or cream colour here, so I only want the very tip of Kirby's images within this first circle to be included in that yellowness. Now, exactly the way I do with coloured pencils, I'm just going to mark around with a really light hand, but I'm actually going to go over it a couple of times just so that I can see the line clearly, because it is a really busy picture, and I want to make sure that I can look at it as a whole and make sure it's even all the way around because I'm doing it freehand, but also if there's any adjustments that I want to make for the sake of aesthetics, then it's easy for me to do so. As I say, we're going to rub all these lines out anyway, so it's not a huge deal, but just rough that in. There's kind of a running joke that people can draw masterpieces and they can't draw a circle. I am one of those people. I find it easier if you're ever, there's a tip for you. See, if you're ever trying to draw a circle freehand, the best thing to do is go quickly. That's that sort of motion. You seem to get a much better job if you do it quickly than actually taking your time and concentrating. So I think I'm okay with that. So then my next one's going to be somewhere around here. Now I want these rings to be roughly even in size. Again, they don't have to be perfect, but I want them to be reasonably uniform. So I'm just going to see where this is going to take me in terms of the you know, the outside border of the picture as well. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And what I tend to do is, see, when I start colouring, I tend to rub these guidelines out as I go. You know, I just leave them there until my coloured pencil's about to meet them, and then I just give them a little erase. Okay, so let's try and get another one on the go. This is quite dark on this right hand side, so I'm going to have to be quite careful that I don't miss those lines when it comes to colouring, because I don't know about you guys, but I get carried away when I'm colouring in pencil. It's like, oh, I'll just keep doing this bit, you know, if you start on a little section and you just keep going, and then before you know where you are, you're miles away from where you started. Okay, that one's turned out quite well. So next one, so this is me, I'm kind of coming to the edges of the piece now, the image. I like to say piece because it is a piece of art. I know that we as colourists just look at it as it's a colouring page, but it is an art piece because Kirby has taken many painstaking hours to create this. I don't think I would have the patience to... Now there we go, I know my circle's lopsided because I've met the edge of the border here and I haven't on this side, but that is okay. I am okay with that. Lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about? Yeah, patience for doing something like this. Pencil is one of the slowest mediums you'll ever work in, but I just genuinely don't think I would have the patience to draw something as epic as this. I think I would lose my marbles, but then again, I sit and do pencil drawings for like 18 hours well, not at a time, but 18 hours on one piece. So right, so I think now I've kind of met my end here, so I'm just going to put in these shapes at the corner. I'm not going all the way around. I'll do one at this corner as well. Going over the lines. It's not very professional, is it? Always the professional, the consummate professional. Okay, so it's slightly off centre. It doesn't bother me. If I wanted to be more accurate, I would have used a compass. Okay, so I have got 1, 2, 3, 4 rings, and then I have these corner pieces plus this bit in the middle. So I'm going to start yellow on the inside, and then I'm going to be able to go into a yellowish green, maybe like an aqua colour, blue, and then blue into a bluish purple. So that's going to work out really well. So now that we've got that planned out, we can actually start colouring. Personally, I would go for a harder pencil, just for the ease of keeping the sharpness of the pencils. However, I really like using Prismacolors in Kirby Roseanne's books, so that is what I'm going to do. I also have my swatch book here to help me pick out colours for the gradients and the transitions, so that's all my Prismacolor pencils there. And I think I'm going to start with the Deco Yellow as the palest colour, and what I need to do now is pick out a selection of yellows to use within this first boundary. So I want a little bit of depth and a little bit of contrast, because otherwise I might as well just block colour everything within this first circle with the same pencil. So I'm just looking here, I'm going to pick Canary Yellow, which, look at my poor Canary Yellow, it's seen better days. I'm going to pick out Spanish Orange. It is more orangey than yellow, but it's still yellow. I'm going to use Jasmine, which is one of the pencils I tend to use quite a lot. Again, it's getting quite dumpy. So what that gives me is 4 pencils to work with inside this first ring. And so really what I'm doing myself is I'm giving myself various sets of limited palettes to work with, and that goes back to what I was talking about earlier when working on something quite complicated. Now, just to tackle first of all the actual blank page, I'm going to use cream for that. It's the lightest colour we've got. So what I want to do is not sharpen it too much. You don't want a really pointy point because we want this to be really gentle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pencil on its side and I'm going to hold it like this. And I'm going to use the side of this tip and work in little circular motions. Now I know you're not going to be able to see this, and I'm going to speed this up because there is no point in me doing this because you can't really see what I'm doing. The pencil's not going on the paper, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you. So little circular motions using the side of the pencil because we want that to be nice and soft. and all I want to do is work my way round on the blank part of the circle and just get a little bit of colour down, because what that is going to do is it's going to give us that really nice transition into when we start actually using our coloured pencils. I don't think you can see that, can you? Even if I zoom in. Again, apologies, because this is the light in the cave today. No, you... Right, I have actually coloured around this section here. Yeah, I can't see that at all. Okay. Right, so another quick demonstration. So I'm going to go up to all the line work. So around everything that Kirby has drawn at the edge of his circle. And I'm just going to keep using the side of my pencil like this. And this cream, I'm going to fade it out. This is ridiculous. I'm going to fade it out as I get closer to the name part in the middle, and it's up to you how far out you bring it, but I'm only probably going to bring it out to about here, but I'm going to do that all the way round. So I'm going to go and do that, speed this up, and I'll catch you guys back up once it's done. Now here where I have got my pencil line, there is still some of this blank space in past where my circle line starts. So I've stopped my coloured pencil just short of that line, and when it comes time to move on to the next colour, I can erase that line there and blend the two together. Alright, okay, you can just see the line very, very slightly, but I promise you it's there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen up all our yellows, and we're going to get to work on the parts that are within this first circle. Now you have to think a little bit about what you're doing, because what you don't want to happen here is for several objects that are next to each other to end up being the same colour. So that's the kind of main thing, and you don't really have to worry too much about what shade of yellow you're using for what object, because most of them are going to go into this second ring, which is going to go into sort of greeny colours. So each object is going to be multiple colours anyway. So I'm going to start with the Spanish orange just because I likes it. And I'm going to start over on this right hand side here because I am left-handed, it is just habit. And the first thing that we have here is a Kirby creature. So I'm just going to use this one pencil and I'm going to colour him in. And I'm going to make him cute. And I'm going to give him some eyes because he looks as if he needs some eyes, but that's just me. Because you're working in these tight spaces, the amount of gradiating and light and shadow you're going to be able to use is fairly limited. So by looking at it as the bigger picture and using your pencil skills there, you will still get a lovely finished product, but without the pain and anguish of trying to put shading in every single little bit. So we have the leg of this creature now. So I'm going to take a fairly dark colour here in terms of our yellows. And I've just gone up to the line. So this is all I'm doing. Now this leg obviously belongs to the same animal, so I'm going to use the same colour there. And then we can just start working around, and all I'm doing is I'm going to alternate between these pencils. Now I wouldn't advise you to use any more than 4 pencils for each section. Now the reason being for that is if you have an object that transitions into like the next ring on the picture, you have to be able to remember what coloured pencil you've used on this side, and it's so that you can blend them together if need be. If you've used 5 or 6 pencils, and especially if some of them are quite close together in colour, you're going to make that really difficult for yourself, especially in something as detailed as that. So that's why I've stuck with 4 pencils. I know the colours really well, and it's going to be easy for me to tell which one I've used for which part. So if I need to go back in and blend, everything is going to be hunky-dory. So this is just not going to be a problem for us whatsoever. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I'm going to use 2 colours here because this is out here on its own. I think it might be a leaf or a petal or something. This is out here on its own, so we don't have to blend that in with anything. Right, so you're getting the idea now. I'm just going to work my way down using my 4 pencils. It's terribly exciting, a whole 4 pencils. So we're getting close now to Mr. Jem's sister is getting married. I think I've mentioned this before. And she is getting married at the opposite end of the UK. So she's not getting married in Scotland, she's getting married in England. But she's getting married in the very southernmost corner of England. So we're starting to get ready for going down to her wedding in a couple, well, it's more than a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I hate as a person is shopping. Now, I'm a complete tomboy, like a self-confessed tomboy. I live in jeans and t-shirts and boots. I very rarely wear heels. I wear makeup sometimes, it depends how rough I'm looking. I am just not a girly girl, and that teamed with hating shopping anyway. There's nothing I hate more than shopping for dresses, and I had to go shopping for a dress. There was nothing to say that I have to wear a dress. You know, no one's telling me that I have to wear a dress to her wedding, but it's likely to be very, very warm, and I'm a person that overheats drastically anyway, so I kind of wanted to wear something that would keep me cool, and I would also look reasonably pretty. One of the things about Mr. Jem's family is he has a big family and he has 3 sisters, and all of his sisters are skinny and gorgeous. So I still want to feel nice and feel feminine, but I just hate shopping for anything. So I went to our local department store a few weeks ago. I was actually going for art supplies, but we have to walk through the department store. If any of you Scottish cavers have ever been in Dundee, that's where I was, and you have to walk through Debenhams, which is the department store, to get to, you know, the rest of the shopping centre. So I had walked through there, and I had said to my mum on the way through, I just want to have a quick look and see if anything catches my eye, knowing full well that nothing was going to catch my eye because I hate dresses, and everything's really like flowery patterns just now. They seem to really be in fashion, and I hate patterns, and more to the point, I hate flowery patterns. I would much prefer something plain if I could get it. So that was fine. We walked through the shopping centre, and this shop assistant caught my eye, and I was like, oh, please don't come and talk to me, you know, I don't want to do this. And she looked at me and she said, are you okay? It must have been the expression of my face. And I said to her, I says, well, I'm trying to be. I said, I need to find a dress for my sister-in-law's upcoming wedding, and I hate dress shopping. I hate trying things on, and I don't really want to be doing this. And she said to me, she says, I can help you if you'll let me. I'll help you. And do you know, that way I just wanted to get out of there. I was like, I do not want to do this. Like, I really just go. And she said, come on, go into the changing room, and I will find you something. So she asked me a few questions about my preferences and what size I was. And the next thing, she came back with this armful of dresses, and I'm looking at them and thinking, oh good grief, these are hideous. Like, some of them were absolutely horrible, and I just thought, what have I got myself into here? And I tried on the first one. Now, number one, it was black and it was long sleeved, and it had like a kind of like pleated bottom on it. It made me look like a frumpy dumpy school teacher, you know, like like something that a primary school teacher would wear when they're in their like mid-60s. And the first thing that it made me think of was my Nona, which is my Italian grandmother. She would have loved it. You know, she would have said, oh, that's a really pretty dress, Jim. And I'm like, oh no, okay. So I said to her, I was like, absolutely not. And my mum's face was a picture when I came out the changing room with it on. I didn't know, I thought she was going to laugh, actually. I would have laughed if I'd have been her. So there was quite a lot of to-ing and fro-ing. And there was one dress that had caught my eye when I'd walked past. That's what made me stop. And lo and behold, this sales assistant brought this dress in, and I said to her, I said, I really like this dress. And it's not something I would normally wear because it's patterned. And the reason that I didn't pick the dress up for myself was because it was £180. Now, I grudged my wedding dress, but that was slightly different. You know, that's kind of a different thing. But I thought, I am never, you know, I don't go to a lot of social engagements, or, you know, I'm never going to wear this dress again. And if I do, it's maybe going to be once, you know, for something else. And I'm like, I'm not paying that money for a dress. Like, this is just ridiculous for one day. And it's not even my sister, it's Mr. James. I was like, no, this isn't happening. And I said to her, I said, I really like this dress, but I'm not prepared to pay this kind of money. And she said to me, she said, I just want you to try it on. So I said, right, okay. So I tried it on, and of course, I really liked it on. The only thing was, it was quite low cut at the bust, and I have a rather large bust, and I'm quite self-conscious of it. I like to cover it up. And I said to my mum, if it had been a slightly higher cut, I would have paid the money and bought the dress because I felt really nice in it. But I would have spent the whole day trying to, you know, pull it up at the front to cover my cleavage up. And I would have been really uncomfortable in it because I would think that people were looking at my chest. So that was a no. And we got down to the last dress, and it looked like a big bit of like drapey fabric. It didn't even look dress shaped. And I tried it on and it was amazing. And I was like, right, yep, that's it, I'm done. And this shop assistant was so pleased with herself. She's like, I've accomplished something that nobody's ever going to have done before, because this woman, it just doesn't like anything. And the lady was really, really, really nice. And we actually had quite a nice chat with her as well. I really liked her. So yeah, that was good. And I was in and out of that department store in less than half an hour. She brought me shoes, she brought me a fascinator, so I now have a full outfit. And also the store had 25% off as well, so I ended up getting everything cheaper than, you know, the tag prices. So all in all, that was a very, very successful shopping trip for me with reasonably minimal stress. So it just goes to show you sometimes that, especially if you have a lot of social anxiety, which I do, but I try and not let it be a thing. You know, I just try and suck it up and get on with it. But I find things like shopping, especially for things where people are going to be looking at me, I find that very, very stressful. So we did really well, and my mum was really happy. She said to me afterwards, she said when we went in, she said I was dreading it because I thought we were going to be there for like ever, and this person wasn't going to be able to find you something because you're picky and you hate wearing dresses anyway. So that was quite good, and I'm glad that that's sorted out now, because it's something that I don't have to worry about. We've just got to worry about everything else. But before we toddle off to this wedding, the more exciting thing that's happening in the next 3 weeks is that it is our local agricultural show. And for some of our longer standing cavers, you will know that it's something that we go to every year, and it's the first time in the year that Mr. Jem really gets to let his hair down after lambing. So it's usually quite a good day, but we've got a couple of weeks to go yet, but that's going to be good fun. So I'm looking forward to that. We're having an unscheduled turn in the weather. It has been really chilly here, you know, compared to normal temperatures for this time of year. It has been cold, but this week apparently the forecast saying that the temperatures have to jump up a little bit, so that would be nice as well, because right now it's kind of nippy. It's kind of nippy out, and we're coming towards the, you know, we're almost at the middle of May now, so you would think that the weather would sort itself out, but who knows. Okay, so I'm just coming to this last little section here now. Just get all this filled in. Now, when I've been going round there, I don't know how much of you have been, how much attention you've been paying to what I've been doing, but I've just been varying my pressure. The likes of up here with these sort of balloon type things, you can see I've pressed down really hard on this side and lightened it up there, and that's just to give a bit of a shading value. So now what we want to do is, I'm just going to move my yellow pencils out of the way. I know you can't see them, but they're in my way. Excuse my arm. And what we want to do now is we want to pick out some greens. So what I want to do is I want to pick more sort of yellowish greens so that we can get a nice transition from these yellows. I've just realised I haven't done the underside of our friend's chin. I don't know. I'll just use the deco yellow for that. There we go. So yeah, I want to pick some yellowish greens. The chartreuse is quite a yellow green, so is the yellow chartreuse, but it's quite pale, so I don't know whether I'll use that. But I'm going to incorporate those two colours, and I'm going to pick out some of these greens as well. So let's see, I did actually have the chartreuse out for something else. Yeah, apple green, grass green, spring green and chartreuse. So that's going to give us quite a range of colours. Which, if you're in any doubt, you can try them out on a scrap of paper. So there is the chartreuse. And that is the spring green, the apple green and the grass green. So we've got a range of values there in terms of the depth of the colour, blah, blah, blah. And we can start to work our way around. So I'm going to start here, just back roughly where I started before. And when I come to my penciling, now this is where I'm going to keep my Derwent eraser with me, and I'm just going to rub that line out a little bit either side so I don't have to do it all the time. And I'm just going to pop that colour in up to where our other line is. And then bring it down and blend out with our other colour, which in this case is jasmine. And I'm just going to merge those together right there. Get a little bit of a blend going on. Now this is one of these things that, see, when you start doing it, it's going to be really awkward and you think, oh, this is going to take ages. But once you get into a rhythm, it gets a bit easier. It's just, you've got to get yourself going. I've just realised I didn't colour in the fawn's nose as well. Terrible at this game. There we go. Now it's up to you in terms of, if you want to put some shading in, like there, I'm going to put some pressure down on his jaw at the bottom there, and that's just to give me a little bit of variation in those, you know, because I'm only using one pencil. Now your gradient, you know, where the two colours blend together doesn't have to be exactly on the pencil line. It's, you know, it's not that precise, so don't agonise too much over that. I think I'm going to use this dark green again under his chin here, make this a different colour. If your blends are quite smooth, you know, if you're quite well practiced, it shouldn't matter if they're slightly off, because the transition's so soft that it's not going to be, you know, really outwardly noticeable. And I will use the chartreuse on his horns here. Good stuff. And I can use the apple green down here on this little flower. Again, I'm just making it a bit darker down at the bottom edge, and it's only for my satisfaction, nothing else really. So back here, we're going to use the same colour because it's part of the same image. I'll put this over a wee bit, you can see better. So this is, I'm back to the spring green here. I'm going to erase a little bit more of my line in there. Bring it down to there. And this is the nice thing about using Prismacolor pencils, is that it's really easy to blend these sections out, you know, it's because they're really, really soft. If you don't have Prismacolors, then you can, obviously you can still blend. I proved that with the Crayolas not that long ago, but you might just have to take a little bit more time over those transitions in between the colours. But most of you know your pencils pretty well, and you know how to figure that out for yourself anyway. I'm not going to preach about that because you guys are all pretty good. I say the downside to that is that keeping them sharp is more of a chore compared to a harder pencil like Crayolas. So that, you know, there is that trade-off. Each pencil type when it comes to the core hardness has its benefits and its flaws. And you have to sort of pick and choose, which is why I keep two sets of pencils. You know, I've got Polychromos and I've got the Prismacolors. The Crayola pencils that I have I actually keep for guests, but I do find myself reaching for them sometimes. But it's just nice to have that variation in hardness, because some books do really well with a much harder core, and yeah, you don't have to mess about your sharpeners much, which is quite nice. There we go. This little guy down here. Reminds me of the little ghosts from Pac-Man. That's what it makes me think of. Apple green here. So I drove past the showground where our agricultural show is held, and you know it's nearly time because they've started to sort the field out, well, the fields where they actually hold it. So they don't put the fencing and things up until the sort of like the week before, but they have like a trailer with a billboard on it, and they put it out in the field with the date of the show. So that's gone up now, and you can see that they're getting ready to start cutting the grass in the fields that are actually used. So it's one of those things that's just like a sign that the hard work of lambing's nearly over, because we are nearly finished lambing now as well. It's a really nice thing to see and to have happen. It kind of cheers me up a little bit, because yeah, lambing's it's kind of a hard time for us. It's gone okay this year though, because we have had a shepherd in. We brought someone in specifically because last year it was really, really hard going, and I thought Mr. Jem was going to expire. I really did. It was too much. So having someone who is qualified specifically to do that has made a huge difference, and having another set of dogs as well. So because obviously, well, last year Jock lambed on his own last year, and it was almost too much for him, and Pip is obviously too young this year, so it's taken a lot of strain off of our dog as well, because we want to look after him and keep him fit and healthy. So we've got the start of the T-Rexes just on the threshold of my line here, and I quite like the idea of having a dark green T-Rex, so I'm just going to add a little bit in here for him. He looks kind of mean. There, that's satisfied my urge, that's good. Just blend this out a little bit. I sat and watched a film last night with Mr. Jem. He loves to watch films. That's like his favourite thing to do. If he's got a day off and he doesn't have to go anywhere, he likes to sit in his pyjamas and watch films on Netflix, and he can sit there all day and literally only move to go to the toilet. I get bored after like 2 films. I have to be doing something, so I usually leave him to it and then join him at some point for maybe 1 film. So this was like I think it was the second film he was watching last night, and it was a Tim Burton film. I absolutely love Tim Burton. I just love his stuff. And I also love Helena Bonham Carter, not because she's married to Tim Burton, I just like her as an actress. And it was, I can't remember what it's called now, I think it's called Dark Shadow. Anyway, basically Johnny Depp is a vampire that comes back from, you know, not from the dead, but he gets locked away, and then he's brought back 200 years later, and it's like 1970, and it is such a funny film, and it's got that really nice sort of dark Tim Burton humour, and also the Tim Burton atmosphere, you know, like the set pieces and everything are very, very stylised and characteristic of his work, and it was really, really funny. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it if you like that kind of thing. It's got that really nice sort of Edward Scissorhands type feel to it, in the costume and the makeup and, you know, that kind of thing. So that was good fun last night, but I very rarely laugh out loud at things in, you know, in films, and I was laughing out loud last night, so yeah, it was good. I can't get over the volume of films that Mr. Jem's seen. When we first got together, it wasn't the first Christmas, because we got together shortly before Christmas. I think it must have been the second Christmas, and my family had come to stay, as is always the case, and we had these sort of after dinner entertainment cards, and you know, it's like quizzes and the Who Am I game, that kind of thing, 20 questions, and we were playing those. And we'd all had an alcoholic beverage, so it was getting quite, you know, there was a lot of hilarity involved. And my mum had brought out this pack of movie trivia cards. So we started playing, and it just got to a point where Mr. Jem was answering every single question. It was really random stuff, like what was the main colour of such and such's shirt during this film, and Mr. Jem's like, oh, I'm sure it's this, or, and I'm like, what? What? How can you possibly remember that? And it's just like, yeah, just that's because I've seen it. Really, really funny. So if you ever need to go to a pub quiz and there's movie questions, Mr. Jem is the man that you need with you. He'll sort things right out for you. He'll win you that pub quiz. But astonishing, you know, really, really. And I had no idea at that point. I knew he liked to watch films, but I didn't realise the extent of his knowledge. And I was like, oh, this one's a keeper. Really funny. So that's one of Mr. Jem's hidden talents. His movie trivia is exceptional. And we always play the game as well, even if there's a film that comes on TV, you know, on like regular TV, I'll always say to him, what year did this come out? And he will be accurate within a year. If he's not got the exact year, he is accurate within a year. I'm like, how do you know that? I just do. So yes, a useless talent, but fun nonetheless. Right, now that I've done this first sort of, so move this down a bit so you can see a bit better. Now that I've done this first sort of quarter, you know, I'm thinking of it like almost as a clock face. One of the things that we have to deal with here is that there is a bit of blank background that is in our green ring and not in our yellow ring. So what I want to do there is, I don't want to use green for it. I'm going to take one of the yellow pencils. Now I think I want to take the Spanish orange because it's the darkest one. And I'm just going to fill in that background very, very lightly. I'm not going to press heavily at all. And I'm just going to have that come out to meet the cream. And it's just so that we don't have these blank spaces. but it's also that the background's getting darker because it's moving towards the outside of the image. Now you probably, again, won't be able to see that very well. You'll only see a hint, but I am not pressing down at all. I am really not. There might be a few areas that even go into the next coloured ring. I can see one here, but it's not too big a deal. But we'll just deal with it as, you know, as they come sort of idea, because this is a very intricate picture. Literally just letting the pigment go onto the paper and no more. And it's so subtle, but it just works. And you would think using the darkest colour that we had from our yellow ring that might not be a good idea. But if you've got a nice light hand, which is something that I am always wittering on about, then you'll be fine. Just let that blend in very, very gently. And there we go, that's looking okay actually already. Happy. Good. We've got the top of our dinosaur head here. I'm going to give him a little bit of green as well. I don't know what kind of dinosaur he is, but he deserves to have a little bit of green in him as well. So I'm pressing really hard on his wings here, or his fins. And it's just to give that little bit of variation again, even though we're just using the same coloured pencil. We've got these bubbles here. Gonna have to sharpen again soon. That's the only thing about this, there's going to be lots of sharpening. He looks in pain, this little Kirby creature, just the shape of his eye. Or he looks panicked, like, oh no. Simple things. Honestly guys, it's simple things. Now we have this fish here. Now that, see this just gives me like flashbacks to the double page that we did with the fish. It's making me slightly uncomfortable. I don't know if I can cope with any more fish. I'm going to use the same technique as well. I'm going to give him a paler stripe in the middle. You know, as if the sun's shining down on the top of his head like that. And give him some eyes as well. Everybody needs eyes. What is it, Kirby? Give your creature some eyes. Like, we make our whale big and friendly. Like, oh yeah. And we'll make our fish looking in towards the front there. Into the middle. Not front. English. Yay! It looks nice. I'm going to have to do some erasing again, or rubbing out. I have a question for anybody, what's wrong with me? Any of you that are in Australia or New Zealand, do you guys call this a rubber? Because in the UK we call it a rubber. We don't really say eraser, but rubber means something else if you're Scottish as well, and I think probably if you're English, which is not, and it's a very adult thing to be talking about. So yeah, I just wondered if people in Australia or New Zealand call an eraser a rubber. I would love to know, because I'm sure somebody told me they did, and I never found out whether you guys do or don't. So if you want to drop me a comment, that would be really cool. Because we talk about rubbing something out, so therefore the aforementioned item is a rubber. But you can also erase things, so, you know. Just interested. I'm fascinated by languages and the sort of regional variations of the same language. I think it's something that's really interesting. And again, I do, although I am although I don't have a really slang Scottish accent, there are Scottish phrases that I do use, and that's why I always like to let you guys know. You know, I like to spread it about a bit. I say stuff like that, just I find it really interesting. I think in the last video that I filmed I used the phrase dreich, which means drab or, you know, sort of grey and gloomy. But most things can be dreich. If something's dreich, it's just not very bright and cheerful. But I love all that kind of stuff. Do you know something else that really made me laugh as well? When I was doing the update video and I was talking about all the changes that we're going through for the channel, and I asked everyone if they liked my jumper, and a couple of people from the US said, "Is that like a sweater?" I'm like, "Yes, it's a sweater, it's the same thing." I never even thought, but we use the phrase jumper collectively to say basically anything with long sleeves that you would wear on your top half can be a jumper, but we do use things like a hoodie or, you know, like a sweatshirt. But jumper is like the collective term. I thought that was quite funny as well, because it's something I never even gave any thought to. I just assumed that everybody, you know, would call it a jumper. It wasn't actually a jumper, it was a hoodie, but that's beside the point. But I really like stuff like that. I find it fascinating. I was watching another YouTube channel as well. I can't remember who it was. I've watched so many YouTube videos, but the person was Australian, and it wasn't Jazza from Draw with Jazza, and they were talking about I think it was a blanket or a duvet, and Australians call it a doona. Is that right? Again, people from Australia, is that something that you use? I'm sure it was doona, and I thought that was really cool as well. I think as well it's interesting because we use a lot of Americanized words, and it is because for such a long time, you know, we have seen a lot of American TV shows. Back when cable and satellite TV first arrived in the UK, there weren't any British channels. It was all American channels. It was MTV and, you know, all that sort of thing. And we have picked up a lot of Americanized words, and I think that's why unless it's, you know, a very sort of colloquial thing, when the rest of the world uses English, they are comfortable and familiar with Americanisms, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. And obviously smaller countries like Scotland or, you know, anybody else that lives in a small country, your phrases are going to be even lesser known. And that's, I like to share. There's a really, really, really good internet advert just now, and it's obviously a regional thing, and it's one of these don't text and drive campaigns, and it's this young guy in his car, and he's on his phone while he's driving, and in the UK that is like, it's an absolute no-no. You can lose your driving license for it now. So it's this young man in his car, and he looks down into the passenger footwell, and his grandmother climbs out the footwell and pops her head up, and she is a very well-spoken Scottish lady, and it is hilarious, because she's basically telling him off for using his phone when he's driving. And one of the derogatory phrases we would use to insult someone, but in a sort of, not in an aggressive way, but if it was like one of your friends, we would call somebody a nugget. So this granny pokes her head up from the footwell of the car and says, "Can you not wait 10 minutes to tell Dan that he's a massive nugget?" And it is just really, really funny, because that's something that a grandmother like really wouldn't say. It's not a phrase they would use. So I was in absolute hysterics watching this advert, but it's actually a really good, it sends a good message. If I can find the link to it, I will put it in the description if anybody wants to go and watch it, because it is really, really funny. It's, yeah, it really tickled me, it really did. And I'm Scottish, so that's fun. I like stuff like that. But it's nice to hear, again, adverts with Scottish voices in it, because a lot of our broadcasting comes from down in England. So it is nice just to hear a Scottish accent, a proper Scottish accent every now and then. I kind of like, I tune out to it now though, because Mr. Jem is English, and you know, I don't even hear his accent anymore. He still says words sometimes, and I'm like, did you make that up? But he says the same about me as well. Okay guys, I am going to call it a day here. I am running out of time. As I say, it's first thing in the morning, so I still have animals to go and feed and all the rest of it before I actually start my own work, so I'm going to have to boost. However, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and there you go, that's the start of it, and I'm really pleased with it. You can see how delicate and gradual this gradient is, and I'm hoping to be able to continue that. We're not going to have any harsh lines, and this is just going to be an absolute feast for the eyeballs of colour by the time we're finished. Thanks for joining me everyone, and we shall see you soon back in the cave for another video, and I hope you all have a very good day. Bye for now everyone.